You're listening to In Session, where marriage and family therapist Mark Fiance sits down with your therapist and other therapists in the community to talk about who they are, why they do the work, and what keeps them coming back. This is Beyond the Intake, where we slow down and talk about the parts of therapy, identity, and being human that don't fit into a first session. Thank you for being here. Please enjoy today's episode.
Let's start with what you mentioned about radical compassion.
Yeah. I think there's compassion, and then I think there's radical compassion. And I think every therapist has, well, I should say most therapists have compassion. But it is a different step when you have radical compassion. And it's like empathy and sympathy. I think it's when you're sitting in it with them and you're like, I really don't see you as a broken human. I just see you as someone who the system failed. And that's kind of it. And it's like, if you had been born into or had been given a better system to live in, yeah, you probably wouldn't have had as many of these problems. And at the end of the day, we're still deeply flawed humans. And I think all we're looking for is that attachment that we didn't get when we were younger. Or maybe we did, but we just we didn't get it as good as it could have been. And so I think it's like this concept of like, I don't just have compassion for people of lower socioeconomic classes, or I don't just have compassion for people who are white. It's like, no, you have compassion for any person, regardless, even if they've done really shitty things, you still love on them and you show them that they are a worthy human being.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned hearing a ton of crazy things in your years of work. And I'm wondering, how do you cope with it outside of the therapy room?
I think there's different things. Definitely, like, still remaining HIPAA compliant. My partner has been really helpful if I can just be like, because there's certain things that are harder to hear than others, for sure. Like, I always think when it comes to sexual assault or kids being abused, like, that's always really tough to hear. And those are heavier days where I kind of cancel my social plans that I either had for that day or the next few days, and I kind of just reflect on that. And my partner has been great at being able to process some of those things, like not what's going on in the session, but why it's hard for me. And so I've been really lucky to have that, obviously supervision. I think some of the stuff, you just have to compartmentalize. I laugh because sometimes the stuff you hear is so laughable because it is so extreme. And sometimes you just kind of have to put that in a box and say, that's an interesting one. I'll think about that later. And then you just keep going.
Totally. I think our job is so unlike anybody else's, because 1 hour we could be talking about all of this trauma. Then the next hour we could be talking about sex and relationships. The next hour we could be talking about really great things that clients are super excited for. And all the while we just have to hold it.
It's why I intentionally started putting kids in between my couple sessions, or every few couple sessions, because that is my form of self-care in the therapy room. I don't show up well if I have several couple sessions back to back. I'm not a person who can, and again, I'm getting a lot of high conflict couples at my work. And so it's pretty exhausting just doing one and doing several. If I can have an 8-year-old or a 12-year-old in there, I'm golden. I'm good to go. I need it as much as they do.
High conflict versus low conflict. What is the difference?
Their access to internal and external resources. So how much can you regulate yourself, and how much do you have others around you who can help regulate you? Because at this point, the couple isn't turning to each other to regulate each other. That they're not going to get to that point until stage 2. But if you are coming from a background where, even if you've had a lot of trauma, but you have done a lot of therapy around it, or you've just done a lot of self-work, you have a really good support system, and your life isn't just extremely stressful. I think of a couple that are empty nesters and their kids have moved out, and they're just dealing with the impending doom of retirement. and still really deep work, but that's very different than a couple who has like 3 kids, they're all under 5, and they're both working. And it's like,
Mm.
yeah, you just have a lot going on right now. Um, and so I think it's really all context-wise, and especially if they do have other people in their lives that they can reach out to, because if they don't, even if they don't have a lot going on, I still consider that more of a high conflict because they don't have a support system.
Yeah. Have you ever had a couple fight so much in front of you that you've really had to step in to stop it?
Oh, yeah, I've had to separate them. Like, I've literally had to do timeout, and I'm like, "You're gonna go to the waiting room, and I'm gonna take one of you in here for 10 minutes, and we're gonna figure out what the fuck is going on, because this is a lot right now." Like, I can't even, like, interrupt to get in and do therapy, and some of my best sessions have been from doing that, and it is really like a timeout. I'm like, "I don't care who goes first, but, like, one person needs to go and, like, take a walk, do whatever you need,
Mm.
and then I'll be like, "What is going on?" And then they'll be able to say, like, "This is" they mostly just need validation for something, and they, like, couldn't get past needing that validation. So we, like, repair that and really validate, and then be like, "Okay, what do you need from this session? How can we keep going?" And then we bring them to the other person, and bring them back together.
Wow. I mean, I think that's a form of such care. Like, I don't know, radical care in a sense. I love this word because you're showing them and modeling that we're not going to try to connect or talk if we can't regulate ourselves, especially if we're not finding that in each other right now.
Totally. Helps me be a better partner, though. Like, I'd say being a couples therapist helps me be a better partner.
Oh, I so agree. I so agree. Earlier in our Meet Your Therapist episode, I mentioned this quote you have on your online bio that says that you're here to support you through healing and self-discovery. And I'm wondering, what has self-discovery looked like for you through your life?
Yeah. Hmm, let's see. Oh, there's so many different routes I wanna go with this. I think when I wrote that, I'm trying to remember because I was just like I was writing this bio, like, right before I graduated, and that was just, like, crazy time. Um, and I remember them being like, "Oh, you gotta write this bio," and I was just like I didn't use ChatGPT, I will admit, I did not use ChatGPT, but it is not some of my best work because I was just like, "I'm so stressed. I'm gonna write this," and now looking back, I'm like, "What did I write?" Um, I think in that moment, I was thinking of probably the development of my queer identity that I didn't discover until I was in grad school. And I think like that happens so much in the queer community of like realizing later on in life. Like there's always the people that know early, and then there's the people who know later on. And that doesn't mean you were any less queer, but your brain just wasn't quite ready to accept it yet. Um, and so, like, I mean, grad school in general just kind of breaks you down to the bare bones and builds you back up. But I remember it was the summer, my second summer. So I was just started my second year, and it was in Bornell's class. And we did this whole, I don't know, I think it was just like, we were learning about human sexuality and like about you and yeah, everything. And I just like had a realization that I was bisexual. But I was also in like a very loving relationship with a man. And the messages I got from different people were super like warped and different. And it was like some people were like, "That's great. Are you gonna leave your partner now and go discover like being with women?" And I'm like, "No. Like, I love my partner. I still love men. Like, I'm not a lesbian." And I have respect and understand the people who are like, "I do need to, like, leave my partner and go discover that." Like, that's totally valid, but I don't think that's everyone's experience, and I think sometimes the queer community and just other people have kind of insinuated that just it's like, my therapist and I, we did a lot of work. Shout out to Laura. That's how
Love Laura.
that's how I met Mark, was through my therapist. Um, it kinda came to this point where I was, like, so conflicted of, like, do I need to go have this experience? Like, am I going to regret this in 40 years if I don't experience being with a woman? even though I'm incredibly happy in my relationship now? Or is that something that I'm just going to be okay with? And like what she phrased it as is like, and I do this a lot when I work with sexuality with clients, is like, there's this box. And sometimes you can open the box and you can look at it, but you can't reach inside and you can't have that experience. And you have to be okay with leaving that box on, like, not played with or not taken care of. And for me, like, she, again, also has ADHD. So she really related it back to like, you're so used to living in a world where if you see something you like, you can just open it and do what you want with it. But we're not built to do that as humans. We're not built to just have every experience that's accessible to us. And like, it's okay to sometimes say no, like, I can't have that experience. And there's grief around that. But also, like, the life that I'm going to choose and live is also really fulfilling and meaningful. And so she was like, I think you're just more annoyed that you don't know what that experience is. Like, the curiosity is killing you. And I was like, oh, that's it. And like, that's what it was for me. And some people, it's like, no, I need to have this experience of like exploring my sexuality. But for me, it was just like, I'm so curious. And I was like, what would that have been like? And it was like an immediate click. And after that, it was like all these unresolved feelings, just like, whew. And like, I haven't thought about it
Wow.
since.
Wow. Yeah. Well, when you brought up this concept of the box that you can open, but you can't reach into with clients, how did they respond to you?
They get it. They really get it. They're like, because I've worked with a few women, like queer women that have experienced this. And they're like, yeah, like, I am just really curious. And it can go into any subject. It doesn't even have to be sexuality, but like, there are opportunities that are presented to us that we don't always have to take. And our society is always just like, whatever feels good, do. But I don't agree with that. And I'm like, I think there's like too much nihilism there. Um, and I think that sometimes we do have to say no because we already have a good thing. Like, we can't always explore what could be the best because it might not be the best. Like, I realized like, oh wow, I could also like leave my partner now and go date a woman and then realize I still love my partner and then lose this whole lifetime that we were going to create. And that's what clients have really resonated with, of like, I could leave what I have now and maybe I would be really happy with the thing that I find, but I also could just be leaving something behind that's like really meaningful.
What would you say to the client who has a very different perspective from you there?
Yeah, I mean, again, like, I do see the other side of it and I do see the validity of that. And I think I would support them in that and say, okay, like, you know yourself. Honestly, like, if you are needing to explore that so bad, you're probably not that happy in the relationship that you're in now. Because if you were, like, you probably wouldn't feel like actually act on that. And again, I mean, maybe their partner is okay with that. Like, we could get into the whole like opening the relationship, whatever. That's a whole other box. Whole other box.
Sure.
I do work with poly couples. But yeah, like, I would support them in that. And I'd say, like, if that's something you feel like you need to do, then I'd say go for it. And I will support you on this journey. And let's also recognize that there are going to be some consequences. And like, your partner might not take you back, or you might have a really good experience and not want to go back to your partner. Like, there's a lot of options here. And like, again, I really fully support what anyone's queer journey looks like, as long as it's not harming others. Like, really a lot harming others, because yeah, your partner's probably going to be upset if you left them. But yeah, it's, again, I mean, it's this whole trope of like queer women leaving their marriages because they realize they're bisexual and they have to.
And the way you're even responding to that, I hear this level of like compassionate directedness in the work. And I'm wondering how that usually lands when you're directive that way with a client.
It depends. If it's in this context, like individual context, it's usually always been pretty good. And even if they're uncomfortable with it, I'm like, my job isn't to make you feel comfortable all the time in therapy. Like, if you felt cushy in left session, great. I don't know if I'd be a good therapist, because I think sometimes you should leave session really pondering, or maybe it's not going to make you feel great. And therapy isn't meant to make you feel good all the time. That's just that affirming therapy we talked about earlier. That's like too affirming. Um, When I call couples out, instant block usually, but I'm preparing for that, and it's either defensive logic, and then I'll call them out on that. I say, "Oh, I see that logic block coming up. Oh, I see that defensive block coming up. What's going on there?" Um, but people, I think, tend to really like the honesty. They might be thrown by it maybe the first few times, but and again, I think it's because like my demeanor and how I carry myself, I don't really seem like someone at first, maybe on the outside, who would like challenge someone that intensely. Um, and sometimes, like if I feel like it's too much, I'll say, "Hey, is that okay that I did that? Like, I don't want you to feel shamed, or I don't want you to feel like I was trying to beat you down. And I just want to check in." And so sometimes I'll do that, especially in couples work, if it maybe feels like it didn't land super well. But, and again, that's just rapport and repair with your client after um, a breach like that. But yeah, I think people like the honesty. I don't know if people are honest enough in today's world. So,
I agree. I think to build a relationship with the client where you can have very honest conversations like that in a safe way, and also have the normalcy of checking in like, "Oh, I just said this and I think you might, or I think that might rub you the wrong way. What was that experience like?" is very transformative.
it totally is. Yeah. Just like having that check in and being like, "Did that land like I thought it landed? No? Okay, let's repair that."
Yeah. Earlier, I don't know if it was in our catch up or in our first episode, but you asked me what was one thing I took away from grad school or learned from grad school. What would that one thing be for you?
Well, I think of the Winston Churchill quote, "If you're going through hell, keep going," because that's truly what it felt like. And I think the days that you feel really shitty, you can do excellent work because you're so in it with your clients. And I've had some of my best sessions when I feel not good. Um, and so, like,
Mm.
when I start to feel like that tiredness creep over, or I just feel like I'm having an off day, I'm like, lean into it, because a lot of your best work has come from this. And you might not have as much patience as usual, but use that to your strength. Um, and so I just kind of notice it in my body, and I'm like, "Okay, it's okay. You're not gonna like fall asleep on the floor. Just like get through it. You'll be good." Even if you think, even if you didn't do the modalities or whatever you wanted to do, you just being there and providing an hour presence is so much more than people have in their daily life.
I think that's something I've had to really remind myself often, because I think in grad school or just in general culture, there's a sense of being an expert in something and then doing that thing expertly all the time. And when it comes to our job, that feels unrealistic and very hard for the therapist to keep sustainable.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I cannot be an expert in EFT and IFS and CBT in narrative. Like, no, it's kind of based on vibes for the day. Like, what am I feeling like leaning into? Maybe more this.
How do you manage situations like that where a client's asking for something constantly, like tools, for example?
Rules is tough. I think they eventually stop because they realize I'm not going to give it to them. Um, I'm just like, "No, we're not doing this." And they're like, Okay." Um, but I think the first few times, like I actually don't use that much Gottman anymore. I don't really, oof, I might get a lot of like spicy comments against me for this. I don't see Gottman as a modality. I see it as a framework. And I learned that from my supervisor. I think Gottman's interventions and research is really, really good. And I don't think it's really a modality. I think again, those interventions are there. And honestly, it's a lot of the same stuff that's in other couples modalities, just with a different name. And like I use his like all of his oral history interviews, like all my stuff for my assessments, I do use from Gottman. But sometimes I'll have clients come in, they're like, "I saw you're trained in Gottman. Like I want Gottman." And I'm like, "Okay, yeah, you're gonna get some Gottman. You're mainly gonna get EFT." But I don't tell them that. And then sometimes I've had couples that are like, "Wow, this is such like I love the modality you're using." like, you did great Gottman work. I'm like, oh, honey, this is not actually Gottman. This is EFT. And then they're like, oh, what's that? And then I get to like share EFT with them. Um, but yeah, if a client comes in asking for a specific modality, like I will try to like, if I know it, like put it in there. But if it's not something that's like in my repertoire and I don't feel it's really in my scope of competence, I'll just kind of be like,
Mm.
honestly, like this is what I use and I see it effective. I think I could help with your issues. But if you're really solely looking for this, I might not be the therapist for you. But no one's really turned me down because of that. So I guess knock on wood. But I really hate when people come in with like psychotherapy pop speak and it's like it's just like or like pop culture. Like I can't. They're like, I need to set a boundary. I was like, a boundary is not what you think it is. It is not you cutting off access to people or that you cutting off them having access to you. I was like, it's you reinforcing your safety and having conversations. Because if you're putting a boundary to avoid a conversation, that is not a boundary. That's just manipulation.
Mm. And avoidance.
And avoidance. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, boundaries is a big one. Throwing around different diagnoses is a huge one. And it gets into such a bigger conversation about labels and what exactly a label does for a person, right? Because sometimes it can be very give someone direction, and then other times it's almost like placating in a way where it's like getting away from the actual conversation.
Yes. I have such a love-hate relationship with labels because like so when I'm working with a lot of ADHD, like I can't diagnose this solely because it is medically managed and it's a stimulant class. So like obviously I can't diagnose that, but it's so hard because people who need an ADHD diagnosis, like it it usually has to be medically managed and like to or even to get medication, they have to get the diagnosis. And that is oh, that's so hard sometimes because I'm like, I get like, yes, I want you to get the help you need, but also having this diagnosis comes with a lot, and that can be so hard. And so it's my love-hate relationship with that one specifically.
When you received your diagnoses, how did that impact you? Some of the labels there.
Well, before I get into the ADHD one, just the autism one, I remember I like didn't really want to believe it for a while, and I realized that was my own internal bias and prejudice of what I knew about the autistic community. And I was like, oh, I have some work to do. um,
Mhm.
and I sat with it for a while, and my like people with ADHD are not oftentimes very organized, very structured. Like that is not a typical ADHD person, but that is how I am. And I never understood, like I'm never messy. My room is crystal clean. And I never understood like all my ADHD friends. I was like, God, like, why are you guys so messy? Like, why do you struggle with this? And I thought it was just like how I was raised. And that is part of it too. But like my siblings have ADHD and they are not the same. And so like, and then there's different sensory things that I struggle with that like there is sensory impacts with ADHD, but there's certain things that like I just like really, really hate like sound wise. Or when sound gets too much, it's really hard to function. And it was really bad in college. I used to get like really overstimulated and like wouldn't be able to do certain social things because of how bad it was. And when I would like tell Laura these things, like she matched it all up and she was like, ADHD and autism are very similar, but these are like some of the things that make you maybe not quite all the ADHD criteria and a little bit more on the spectrum. And like the being organized, the being really structured, the black and white. And I was like, oh, that finally makes sense. And I finally felt like I fit in a bit more. They call it the ADHD community, like the autism ADHD. Because I never fully felt like I fit in with the ADHD community sometimes because I am very high functioning and I mask things very well, which we'll get into a whole thing about masking later. But yeah, so that was kind of that experience, and that was actually like shortly after I realized I was bi. So I was getting like a lot of
Yeah.
identity changes that year. It was kind of crazy. With ADHD, though, it was a lot different. I was 9, and I was immediately medicated, which I have a lot of mixed opinions about. There's actually research that the earlier you're medicated for ADHD with like specific stimulants, it will actually rewire how your brain processes dopamine in the neural pathways. So it's actually really helpful. And so like I'm at a point now where I don't really need a lot of medication management. Like I did when I was in school, because that shit's hard, and 10 hours for anyone is tough. And I was lucky to be able to use Adderall. um, but like now I've also learned who I am as a therapist on medication and off medication, and I'm realizing it's not much different. And so that's when I eventually made the choice to stop. It just is my energy level. So on days where I have like 4 to 5 in a row, I will take Adderall just for my own benefit. Um, but for the most part, I don't really medicate anymore. And I feel like I have built enough just kind of behavioral changes in my life and ways to cope that I don't really necessarily feel like I need it. But that's, again, not as common for people with ADHD, but more common when you've been medicated from a young age.
Yeah, wow. How do you find yourself working with clients who find themselves in similar situations?
Um, I actually just had, it was a couple, because most of my clients are like trying to get medicated for it. They're just an early diagnosis, and so like they're usually getting medicated. But I actually had a couple, and the man was similar to me. He's a lot older, but he like used it to go through school, but then stopped, and he's like 20 years older than me now. And he was like, it's getting really hard to like balance my work schedule and my family schedule. And I was like, have you considered maybe going back on medication? And he's like, I haven't been on it since I was your age. But he was like, it's something that I thought I was done with. And like, it helped me understand that there might be a time in my life where I need to go back on it for like my family's benefit or whatever identity I'm living in at the time. Um,
Mm.
but like we got to have a very honest conversation about, I was like, I get it. And I get the like almost shackles that it feels like you're in, like being in medication management for something that you've been on since you were a kid. And like you actually have the autonomy to choose that now. Your parents aren't forcing you to do it. And like there's so much more beauty in being able to choose your treatment plan when you're an adult.
Mhm. I so agree. It's like there's this empowering aspect to those conversations where it's acknowledging and validating that, hey, this is hard and maybe is a wall, uh, as well as, yeah, and this is something that you can make the choice in yourself.
And that's my work with kids. That's where I really hone in on of like, do you know what your medication does? Because I wasn't taught that. I just was given a pill called my focus pill, and it made me not always feel great, but I didn't really have the education to know what was going on inside my body. And so like I draw out like neurons for kids, or like we do like beaded crafts, and I'm like, this is what dopamine is. And then we like add different beads, or like we draw different things, because I really want them to understand what's going on in their brain when they're being medicated from such a young age. And for autism, I tell kids it's like when you put on red or blue tinted colored glasses, and like that's how you see the world, and everyone else sees it in like yellow. But that doesn't mean you're seeing the world any less beautifully. It's just you're seeing the world in a different light, and you're going to have those glasses on the rest of your life. And so you got to learn to adjust of when to when to see things a little bit more yellow, and when it's okay to see them blue. Or you can use whatever color you want.
I think that for therapists, so many parts of identity come out through the work for us. And some of that can feel like, how much do I relate or share with the client or show of myself? How you've mentioned it a couple times, how does age play a role in your conversations and in your work? Because I feel like that's something that I've had to figure out myself.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you also got carded for being so young all the time.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm. Oh, I
it's
have. Yeah. Yeah.
it's ageism, I guess. It's a prejudice that I didn't think I would encounter at this point. I've never encountered it anywhere else. And I realized how much it took a hit to my self-esteem. And bless her heart, my mom was so sweet. She's just such a a problem solver. And I remember telling her like, oh, I just got turned down again because I was too young. She's like, do you need to go get a haircut to make you look older? Should we go get you different clothes? And like her heart's in the right place. And I was like, no, I'm not changing anything about me. I just need to change how I talk to myself about it. But I laugh at that now because it was like a text and I was like, that's so funny. But yeah, I think I'm just very honest about it now. It only comes up with couples, never really individuals or kids. It's really just couples. Um, and I am confident now, and I feel like it doesn't affect me as much anymore because I just tell myself, I'm like, I am a good therapist no matter how old I am. And I was a good therapist at 22. I'm a good therapist at 26. Like, I'm just learning more and more of how to fine tune the process. But I'm pretty open with couples now. I won't tell them my age unless they ask because I don't love giving them a number. But I'll just say like, hey, like I know I look young and I understand if you have questions or reservations about that, and I'm happy to help. And also if you think this will impede the process, like let me know now so I can find someone that will help because that will get in the way if you are thinking like this girl doesn't know what she's doing. I kind of hate that this helps, but like getting engaged and saying I'm going to get married soon is like, doesn't even matter how old I am. They're just like, oh my God. Like I say that and it just like changes. And they're like, oh my gosh, that's so exciting. And I'm like, I hate that this is like this weird privilege that I now have of like being engaged and soon to be married. But I'm like, you know what? If it works the system for me, I will work the system.
Right. It's like now you're grown type label. Exactly what happened for me when I got engaged too. Where like these conversations started shifting to, oh, maybe you do know what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or when they ask immediately, are you married? And I'm like, no. Sometimes I'm like, do I just tell them I'm engaged? Or I'm like, no. But sometimes I do. But they'll be like, oh. And I'm like, I don't need to be married to know how to help you in your marriage. Like, I'm not using my personal experience to help you. That's not what we do as therapists.
In my own experience with the ageism and all of that, it's happened in couples too, where it's like I've heard a ton about I could be as old as your mom, or I have so much life experience that you don't seem to have. And we haven't even talked about like actually how old I am. It's just by perception of like my picture.
Yes.
Uh, um, and it gets so disheartening, and it's hard not to get down that line of thought as the therapist of, oh man, maybe I'm just not as good as others, or I'm not good in general.
Yeah. That was a big thing. I was like, what makes me worthy of being a therapist when I don't have as much experience as some of my peers? But I'm like, no. Like, I think once you see yourself doing good work, you're like, no, I got it. I got it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, I encourage my couples just stick around for the process because I promise, even though I don't know what it was like to live in the 80s or the 70s or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
I know what healthy dynamic and communication and talking probably look like, and I can help you do that.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, no, I agree. And like I tell them that, they'll be like, do you know who this person is? I'm like, no, but that's not really going to affect the therapy process if I don't know this pop singer from the 80s.
But what do you like the most about working with couples, and what do you maybe not like as much?
What do I love? I think, and maybe this is just part of the ADHD, I think it is the perfect amount of stimulation because sometimes going from a couple session to an individual session, I want to bonk my head against the table because I'm like, this is so slow. This is so slow. I'm like looking at the clock. I'm looking at the clock and I'm like, oh my God, what are we going to do? The IFS? I guess so. No, like, I mean, I hope people, but it's like, it takes a little bit. It takes a little bit. And especially because I just started getting more individual adults and I was really just seeing couples for like 6 months. It's been a change. But I love how fast paced things are, but how much you can slow them down too. You see change more. You see change a lot faster than you do in individuals because it's two people doing the work. Um, and I also love that it's like, I don't love when I have an individual and they're like shit talking their partner the whole time because I'm like, I can't help with this. Either you go to couples therapy or like we can give you some tools, but there's not much that I can really like do at this point.
Right. It's so easy for individuals to triangulate us as a way of easing some of the relational tension in their partnership. But for us, it's really weird because we're like, we don't know what they're thinking, or we don't know what they actually did. We're just getting what they did from your perception.
Yes, exactly. And so couples, I'm like, hey, it's all live in here. Like we are seeing it play out, and I actually get to go in and be like, boop, and we get to like do it all in there. Also just the moments where you see people fall in love all over again is there's uh there is nothing that I think will fulfill that part of you. And we have such a unique role because I don't think anyone else gets to see that in their jobs and even in their families. Like we get to see this really incredible, unique, and special work. And it is so empowering to be able to say, like, I helped with that, but they did the hard work. Like I got to watch them do the hard work. Um, oh, and I just had a couple that they like both were like he started crying and then she started crying. I'll just say this. I love when people cry. I'm like, yes,
Me too.
yes, I got you to cry.
Eat
This
it
is
up.
good. Good. I got him to cry because that's an immediate way for you to connect with your partner. Um,
Yeah.
and they just like, oh, she just like, I was like, do you want a hug from her? And he was like, and I've tried this before and they weren't ready for the hug, but they were this time. And they like stayed in it. And I learned this from core skills. They were going to break apart. And I was like, no, 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 no. We're just going to sit in this. And I made them hug for even longer than they would. And just like let their bodies and their nervous system take in that regulation. And it was just like, oh, chef's kiss. I was tearing up. I was like, this is so good.
Chills running through my body as I listen to you because I relate so much. And I think going into the work, I didn't know I would be so attached to doing couples work. I didn't even think I was going to do it. And then getting exposed to it, EFT, and like listening, and I just couldn't stop reading about it and learning about it, and then seeing couples struggle and then find ways to have the little moments of saying, and I still love you. Ooh, man, tickles my therapist's heart, and really just my deeper attachment things that happen for me. So
Oh yeah. And it's delightful. I love it.
yeah, it's amazing. One thing that I did want to ask before we get to those though is I just didn't want to overlook it. You said in your own experience, I don't have to change anything about me. I just have to change the way I think about it or talk about it. How'd you come to that? Because that sounds amazing.
Man, how do you unlock the confidence? I'm also realizing that listeners might think I'm like overconfident. Trust me, I still have days where I'm like, I am shit. So it comes and goes in waves. I think mm, logistically, what helped me was seeing a lot of my couples enter into a deeper stage one work and get some of their cycles more regulated. And I didn't feel like I was floundering all the time because, like, getting a new couple, it's going to feel really tough for a while. And then when you are already getting the discrimination of your age, that's just like a whole other level on top of it. But like, I even had a couple that said, and I love working with them, but they said, like, oh, you seem really young, but we're going to give you a chance. And I was like, okay. And at first I was like, I got to prove this, but like, and I have proved it, but not intentionally. Like I've done it because I'm a good therapist. And they've said after our first few sessions, they were like, oh, you know what you're talking about. Like, yeah, that makes sense. So I think like having not all of your couples just in like super early stage one work is really helpful. And you just are able to regulate yourself more as a therapist and like be like, okay, I see the good work I'm doing. I got this. I'm a pretty confident person, so I didn't love feeling this because I was like, this isn't me. I don't normally get dogged down by this. And I've done this a lot with like how I look because I look like I think my body has changed from like even 7 years ago or like high school me. Like I don't know. I mean, you probably experienced this like when you're in high school, you have like such a fast metabolism, you can eat whatever the hell you want and not work out and like still look pretty good. But then the older I've gotten, I've realized like that's not true anymore. I still look hot, but like I have to also like feed my body healthy things and like take care of it. I can't just like eat chips and sit in my bed and then like wake up with a six pack, you know? And so I feel like what framed that shift for me was like not loving my body for how it's going to look, but for how it looks now and being okay with that. And so that applied to my therapy of like, I'm okay that even if this is the best therapist I can be and I don't get any better, I'm still a good therapist. And like, I feel like that framework helped me change of like, even if this is the best that it can get, I still am good. I still look good or I still do good. And in reality, it's just going to get better.
Such a powerful frame to think about, and hard to adopt in like every facet of life, but worth the try too.
For sure. And it's a lot of growth and compassion for yourself and working with your own therapist.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't think I could do the work that I do without my own therapist.
No, man, if Laura wasn't there, there's certain things I'm like, oh, she has saved me in a lot of instances. And like I come to a point now where I'm like, I love therapy. I don't think I'm a high acuity enough to like need it at this point, but we do biweekly, and I like just having someone who has known me for 4 years now and can check in and be like, how's this going? And also like getting married, there's just so much stress with that. And it's been nice to have a soundboard there. So
Yeah, I agree. Shout out Susan. Susan's my therapist. And oh, Susan, yeah, a lot of confidence to work with her and like really like push me to make this podcast and show up in the way that I do. And um, yeah, I have no idea if she actually listens. Sometimes she alludes to like it, but of course she's not telling me, because my worth with this podcast should come from me and not if she's listening.
that reminds me of a project that I wanted to talk about.
Talk about a project. Yeah.
Okay, this is my passion project because you were like, have you ever thought of a podcast? And no, this isn't a podcast project, but I feel like everyone, like now that I'm done with school, this is like my 5-year plan project. So in undergrad, I loved to dance. Dancing was one of my favorite things, and I had never done it before, was not classically trained. So don't come at me with like the pointed or flexed toe because I don't got that. But I took a lot of dance classes for musical theater and other types like styles like hip hop. And then I eventually became a dance teacher in undergrad, which was so cool because that was like a dream that I never thought I could achieve. And then in my gap year, which we can talk about that in another time, but I worked at a youth center, which really led me into wanting to become a therapist even more. But I taught dance classes there to kids, and it was such a cool experience to get kids to like get comfortable in their bodies, even if they had no dance experience. Because I think some of the better dance teachers are people who aren't classically trained. Because I'm like, oh, I get it. Like you have to get past the like it has to look good. You just have to do it and feel good. And so I do a lot of dance therapy with my kid clients now. I'm still able to incorporate that, but I kind of want to move away from like a client base and provide it to like healthcare workers, therapists, any long-term caregivers, like people who are in a helping role that don't often get poured into and do things for themselves. And I just want to teach them to like have fun, and like we don't have to do hard things. We're just like doing an aerobic dance workout, and there will be tons of pit bull because I love pit bull so much. But yeah, that's kind of my like 5-year goal of like getting clinicians and healthcare workers to come dance.
Katie, I think that's such a great idea and something that our community can really benefit from. So as you know, every Beyond the Intake episode ends with the same 3 questions I ask every guest. I call doorknob questions. Here's your first one. What is a small joy that you've been loving lately?
Okay. I have a few. I'm sorry, I can't choose one.
Oh.
Okay. So I think the main one, and this is part of like the dance dream, I'm taking baby steps because that takes a long time to build. So part of it is like making myself dance again. And I'm not actively in a dance class right now. And I just don't have a lot of time with planning a wedding and being a full-time clinician. So my halfway point is doing Just Dance at night. And it's not even like Like, it's not even in the game. I just go to YouTube and I look up like old Just Dance videos. I just do them. And I realize that like people can see me because it's always at night. People can see me probably through my window, my living room. And they're probably just like, she's so nuts. She's just doing Just Dance on the TV. But I love it. And
Oh my gosh.
it's a great cardio workout. And it makes me feel good. And there's a lot of fun, like 2012 songs that I listen to on there. My other one is I started doing it recently, but my childhood best friend and I, we live far away. She lives in Albany, Oregon. And we still want to try to connect, but we're not really phone call people. And so we do watch parties, and we do them once a week, and then we like watch 2 episodes. We're doing Vampire Diaries right now, but we watched it together when we were 14 because we've been friends for a very long time. And so we were watching it now as an adult. We were like, this is crazy. Some of the stuff in here is like A, so violent, and B, like these teenagers are doing crazy things. But it's fun. And I say we spend the first episode just like not even like paying attention. We just like catch up on our life together. And then the second episode we like walk in and we watch together. But yeah, it's something I look forward to every Monday night. It's really fun.
Okay, second question. What's something your clients have taught you about life?
Oh, I love when they give me gossip. That's not the real answer, but I love when they give me gossip.
Awesome.
Which, if we have time, I have like a beige flag about myself about gossip, but I can share that later. But for
We
real.
have time.
Okay, I'll share that after this.
Okay.
They teach me how to be human. There's a quote from another influencer therapist. I can't remember her name. It's like Dr. Tracy or something. But she says, "Oh, your human is showing." And I feel like that is something I have to remind myself as a clinician a lot. Is like, I'm still human and they're human. And at the end of the day, regardless of their experiences and their identity, we are still humans. And they just want to be loved. And I think it's taught me like some of the most basic things humans want and need, and how easy it is to actually provide that. Yeah, but I get it if you're never taught to do that, then it's hard. So yeah, I think they've taught me that. They've taught me, I think I finally like separated therapist Katie and real Katie. And for a while, especially when you're first learning, those are just so intermixed because you don't really know who you are as a therapist or as a person when you're in grad school. And I think for a while, those were just too interconnected and I hated it. And I finally like separated them, I think, at this point. So I think if a client saw me on the street, I would be a little bit different. They'd probably be like, she's a little bit weird. But I'd be like, that's okay. Because I like rein it in for the session and I still let that weirdness come out. And I think they've taught me that that's okay to let some of that weirdness out. Yeah, but yeah, you would probably see me do some weird things.
Amazing. Quick rundown of red flag, green flag, beige flag, flag. How are you describing that to somebody?
Oh, green flag is like golden retriever energy, like good, we're doing great. Red flag is like, there's so many different types of red flags, but I think of like red flags like he's kind of an asshole. Like I wouldn't like put the people who are abusive into like red flag because that's just like a whole other category, and I don't even think that's like good enough to put into a flag system. Like that's just like genuinely unsafe. But red flag is just like he doesn't, or it could be she, it doesn't really matter, they, whatever. They don't like interact with your friends. I'm thinking like terms of relationships, like they don't ever ask about your interests. They don't want to do things with you. They are emotionally immature, which that could change. We can work with that, but yeah, that's my flag. And then beige is just like ethically questionable, but not harming anyone. Great.
Real. That's where most therapists are. But Last question. If there's one thing you would share with your younger self, what would that be?
Oh, I'm picturing like 9-year-old me. Um, I feel like we would go. I'm picturing my school that I went to at the time, and we would go sit on this bench under this tree. Um, and I'd probably just tell her like people will love you someday for your authentic self. And I know that no one loves you for that now. Like no friends love you for that now. But don't ever try to meet the standard that this society has set for you in those terms because it's boring and people will fall in love with the authentic you and it's not too much. And you're actually really smart because I didn't believe that for most of my life. But knowing that I am academically very smart and just because I have ADHD does not make me any less competent than someone else.
Wow. Thank you, Katie. And I hope your younger self can really hear that message right now. And for everyone who's listening, I hope that resonates too. I mean, if that doesn't show how Katie shows up in the therapy room, I don't know what does. Cool. Well, Katie, thanks again for agreeing to be on the podcast and allowing me to highlight your wonderful self. For everyone who is listening, if this resonates with you, let me know. If you want to connect with Katie, her information is going to be down in the show notes. And yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for spending the morning and afternoon with us.
It's been an honor. It's been an honor.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm
How you
sweating.
feeling?
I'm good. I've laughed so much. I'm like getting hot.